Hey everybody, a couple things we want to go over today when we're talking about Pythagorean Theorem. Yesterday we just kind of solved the very basic ones where we know both legs of the right triangle. But we want to talk about two things today. What if we don't know the hypotenuse? What are we going to do then? And then what about the converse of the Pythagorean Theorem? So, yesterday we said that Pythagorean Theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where a and the b are the legs of the right triangle, and c is that hypotenuse, right? But we didn't do any that maybe look like this, and I know this side is 31 centimeters, and this side is 16 centimeters. And we don't know that side. Well, we should probably put it as a right triangle. Otherwise, we can't really use Pythagorean Theorem, right? So, cool. So, in this case, let me see here. My phone, I feel like it's not zooming very good. There we go. In this case, we do not know this leg, right? We do know the side that's across from the right angle. So when I'm filling in a squared plus b squared equals c squared, make sure it doesn't matter where 16 goes if it's a or b, but 31 must go where the c goes, right? Because that's our hypotenuse. It has to go on the side by itself. So our hypotenuse is going to go over here on C. Now, for the most part, it's not going to change much about this problem, right? So 16 squared, we get 256. 31 squared, I don't know that one. 961. Okay? But now is where it gets a little bit different. So we did the same stuff, but now I want to get b by itself. So this is almost like a two-step equation now. Instead, I want to subtract 256. So I can get that b all by itself. That's going to leave me with b squared equals 705, according to my calculations. And then, now we can still do the same thing we did yesterday. Get rid of the squared part. We're going to take that square root. And remember, we only want the positive answer. We don't need both. So the square root of 705 is about 26.55 centimeters. And remember, I want to think to myself, all right, the hypotenuse has to be the longest side. It always is going to be. So is the leg that I found smaller than 31? It certainly is. Think about that as you do this problem. When you get your answer and you're like, ooh, I wonder if this makes sense. Take a look at it and see if it makes sense in your triangle. Let's do one more like that. So let's say we got this one. And we know that this is 15 feet. And we know that this is 12 feet. And we want to know about this side over here. So again, I'm checking, what is it that I don't know? Well, in this case, I don't know the leg, right? One of my legs. So A or B had better be this. We'll make it A. A squared. My other leg is 12, right? It makes the right angle, so that's going to be 12 squared. And across from the hypotenuse is 15. That one has to go in for C. That's the rules. Square them. A squared plus 144 equals 225. 225, right? And then, again, this is that part that's a little bit different. If I want to get A by itself, we're going to subtract 144. So a squared is going to equal 81. And then when we take these square roots here, square root, a is going to be 9 feet. Yeah, how about that? So that's a little bit different. Pretty much the same steps, but definitely some stuff you want to check out. Where if we don't know a leg, we got to do that subtraction part in there. All right, then real quick, the converse of the Pythagorean theorem. So the converse of something is like the opposite, right? Or think of an if-then statement. If it's raining, then I'll bring my umbrella. The converse is you flip those. If I bring my umbrella, then it must be raining. So in the Pythagorean theorem, we know it's a right triangle. If it's a right triangle, we can say a squared plus b squared equals c squared. This one says if a squared plus b squared does in fact equal c squared, then it is a right triangle. We're proving that it's a right triangle. So let's say there's a triangle with sides of 5 inches, 12 inches, 13 inches. And they want to know, is it a right triangle? So this would be the part where we would use the converse of the Pythagorean theorem. So same idea. We're going to set up a squared plus b squared equals c squared. But you got to be careful what goes in where. C squared, if this is a right triangle, the longest side has to be the c. So you find the longest side, that's 13. It has to go on this side. The other two don't really matter. 12 squared and 5 squared. Then, once I set it up with the biggest side in for c, I'm basically just going to do this math and see if they're the same on both sides. If they are, hey, cool, it's a right triangle. If they're not, it's not a right triangle. So, let's see, 12 squared is 144. 5 squared is 25. 13 squared is 169. Add these two together. We get 169 equals 169. And don't you know? Yes. It is. It. All right. Triangle. So since we got the same thing on both sides, we can go ahead and say, yep, you bet it is a right triangle. All right, cool. That's a little bit more of some Pythagorean theorem stuff. We're going to practice it tomorrow, and you're on like your second little mini spring break here. So let me know if you need any help with Pythagorean theorem stuff.